So you're thinking about moving to Spain, but you're not sure exactly where in Spain you want to land. Hi, I'm Vanessa. Welcome back to the podcast. I recently returned from a scouting trip through Spain with a company called Expatsy. Expatsy helps Americans mostly figure out where in the world they want to go. And Spain is one of the countries where they offer a range of resources to help people discover if this is where they want to live and take the steps necessary to make the move. And I was lucky enough to partner with them to take a group of Americans on a 3-week journey through Spain. We started in Girona, and there are 2 tours, but we ended up in Sevilla. Today's guest is Anne Reed. She is a retired professional from the United States who joined me for the full Expatsy tour through Spain. Anne came to this trip with a big question. She wanted to know, can I really move to Spain? Can I move my life to Spain? Can I do this? And she'd been to Spain before. She liked it. And this time she really wanted to get a feel for what it would be like to live here and not visit as a tourist. And that's what these trips offer. I really enjoyed getting to know Anne and watching her figure out what she liked and didn't like about different cities and different types of housing throughout Spain. So in this conversation, we're going to dive into what it was like to travel with a group of like-minded explorers through Spain, what she discovered about her preferences, and what areas she's most excited to return to for an even deeper dive. If you're thinking about moving to Spain, or maybe you've heard about Expatsy and you want to learn more about what it's like to go on an Expatsy tour, then this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Hello, Anne. It's so nice to see you. It's only been a couple of weeks, but I already miss you. How are you? How is life back in Georgia? No, North Carolina.
No, I'm actually in Georgia.
Georgia, that's right. Sorry, getting you guys confused.
I'm in Savannah.
Yeah.
Life is actually very similar to Spain with the heat. So we're starting to get the heat and humidity here already. But it's nice to be back, but I miss you as well.
Yes. Well, I can't wait to get into your experience on the Expatsy tour and find out what you learned about Spain during your trip. So let's start with why you decided to join the Expatsy tour in the first place. What was your motivation?
Well, it kind of started with a one-on-one consultation with Jen. So I did the Expatsy test on the website like most people do. And it came back with some generalizations, but I wanted a little bit more in-depth. So I set up a one-on-one consultation with Jen, and it just so happened that 4 of the cities that she mentioned were included in the 2 Expatsy tours. So I had to prepare for that call with her. I made my list, I'm famous for making lists. So I had a list of my absolute must-haves, my nice-to-haves, and my absolute don't wants. And so again, 4 of the cities that she mentioned were on the trip, so I thought it was a good idea to sign up for them.
Perfect. And so what was your goal going on the trip? Was it to find a city to live in, to sort of learn more about Spain? What did you want to walk away with?
So I'd been to Spain before on several visits, but you look at things differently through the lens of a visitor, a tourist, versus actually living there. So I wanted to see if I could acclimate to the Spanish culture and the way of life. I also wanted to explore cities that might be of interest to me. And I think one of the most important things for me was to connect with some people, those on the tour with me and expats that we might meet along the way, because I want to start building my tribe in Spain. And I thought this was a good way to do it.
Yeah. So we'll get more into some of whether or not you reached all of those goals. But before we get into that, why are you considering leaving the US and moving to Spain?
Politics, which I think is the answer for a lot of people. I just don't feel comfortable in my country anymore and the way it's headed. And I just think it's a good time to explore other options. I think everybody should be exploring other options right now and having an exit plan.
It's sad that we are in that position, but absolutely. And what we're seeing with the shifting regulations in different countries is that if you think you want to leave, you should start now to at least plan and do the research and put things in place. As we always see during big shifts, political shifts, those who leave early have the most options.
Exactly.
Those who wait have doors closed to them. And it's hard as Americans, I think, to think of doors being closed to us, right? We're so privileged.
You're so right.
But Even privileged countries can see doors close when too many people are headed in one direction. So hate to be doomsdayer here, but I agree. I mean, you should have a plan. You should think about where else would you go if where you are is no longer going to be a good fit for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you are the queen of research and lists. So I'd love to know more about the prep work you did to prepare for the trip.
I did a lot, but I could have done more. So I did the expatsy test. I did the one-on-one with Jen. I listened to lots of webinars. I tuned into all kinds of webinars on the expatsy site. I did research on several websites. I joined Facebook groups. I subscribed to some blogs and some Instagram accounts. So I felt like I'd done a lot of research, but once I got there, I realized I should have done a lot more.
So isn't that interesting? I mean, you can read everything, but there's nothing like actually being in a place and hearing it and smelling it and feeling it. So you maybe could do more research, but you probably did more than most people, more at least most people on the trip, and nothing compares with being there, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think I told you this. We moved sight unseen twice. I moved to Portugal and Costa Rica without ever having visited before. And I don't recommend
I
it.
can't even imagine doing something like that.
The logistics called for it, but you can read everything and you talk to your friends who you know, like, and trust, and you can still be completely surprised. So going on a trip like this
Absolutely.
is so valuable. Even though you're only getting a taste of all these different places, you at least get to feel it, see it, smell it, see it firsthand and make your own judgment call about what you like and what you don't like. So you mentioned you had 4 cities on the list that were particularly interesting to you. Were there any cities that surprised you either positively or negatively?
Yeah, Alicante really surprised me. And it wasn't on our list. And we happened to have a little extra time. We stopped in there for lunch. And I kind of fell in love with the place. I hadn't really researched it, didn't know much about it, but just walking around for a few hours, you just get a feel about some places. And I really enjoyed my time there, even though we only had 3 or 4 hours. And it's a place I'll go back to and explore more. Cadiz was one of the places that Jen recommended to me, and I just didn't get the same feeling there. So it's probably not a place I will go back to. And I can't really put my finger on exactly why, but sometimes you just get a feeling, a gut feeling, and you need to go with that.
Yeah, I remember watching your face as we were touring properties down there. I could tell this was not your place, which is totally fine. I mean, it's a big country and that's the point. You should figure out where you connect. And I agree. Alicante was a really big surprise for a lot of people, myself included. I'm actually going back in a few weeks to look at some property down there because I want to see more about the area. So yeah, that one was interesting. What other areas were you particularly drawn to?
I really like Girona. And I think a part of that is because you presented it in such a favorable light. It's also enticing to me that it's only a 40-minute train ride into Barcelona. Barcelona has always been one of my favorite cities in the world. I don't feel like I could live there, but having easy access to it is great. And I like the fact that Girona has a little bit more of a 4-season feel. I found that living in Savannah, I kind of miss having 4 seasons. Girona is definitely on my list. Valencia is on my list. It's a bigger city than I thought I wanted, but there was just a feel about it, and the culture and the museums and the galleries and the art and music and all were very enticing. Alicante, I'll go back to, and Sevilla was a bit of a surprise. And everybody said, oh, you can't live in Sevilla because of the heat. But I'm in Savannah, Georgia. I think I'm pretty acclimated to the heat at this point. And actually, the humidity in Sevilla is much less than it is in Georgia. So those are places I'll go back to. And I want to go back. I want to go to the Basque region. That was an area that Jen suggested to me. And I tacked on some extra time at the end of the trips to go there. I want to check out San Sebastian and Bilbao. But I was just exhausted, both mentally and physically, after 2 trips. And I wanted to get some questions answered about taxes and inheritance and several other things before I do that next exploratory trip to Spain.
Yeah, it's so interesting because those are such different areas, right? But I think there are some common themes. They're mid-sized cities. They're pretty walkable.
Mhm.
But They still really have a sense of place, unlike maybe these parts of the Costa del Sol where there are a lot of international people. I mean,
Yeah.
Valencia is pretty international, but it still very much holds on to its place. Girona definitely does that. And Sevilla, I think, is such an interesting place, especially as you just get out of the city just a little bit. I was surprised by how green and lush it was. I don't know, in my head, I had this picture of it being more arid than it actually was. And speaking more to our host down there, Stephanie, she made some really good points. Everyone goes on summer vacation. It's only really hot for a couple of months. Everybody just goes away, or they sleep in the afternoon, they stay out at night. I mean, it is like the third or fourth largest city in Spain. Clearly people live there. I mean, it's not inhospitable. It gets really hot in the summer versus, she came from Minnesota and she said, it gets really cold in the winter. People leave, snowbirds leave in the winter because it's really cold. It's just the opposite of that kind of lifestyle and that kind of way of living. I think we might be overdoing it. I don't know. Talk to me after I'm there in August and I may have a different opinion, but I think it's such a vibrant, interesting, beautiful city.
It is.
It's one of my favorites too. Absolutely.
Now, granted, I would not live in a place without air conditioning in Sevilla.
No, absolutely not. So I watched your realization of what you need or what your expectations are in a home kind of shift or morph as you looked at lots of property. Kind of talk about that and how you're thinking through where you want to land in this next phase of your life.
It's a good question because it did change. And I kind of went with an open mind. I'd been looking at real estate sites online and looking at properties, but they were out of context. This house looks great. It looks like it would fit my needs, but I had no idea where that actually fit. And so now I was able to put properties in actual places. And I think I came to the realization that I'm really a city girl. I loved looking at some of the villas that were out in the countryside, but I don't want a car. I don't want to drive. I want to reduce my carbon footprint, be a little bit kinder to the climate. So really looking at apartments in the city center where that's what I decided I really need. So that helped me eliminate a lot of places that might originally have been on my list. And I can do with a lot smaller property. Right now I'm in a 3,500 square foot house. I don't need all of this space. It's more about where that space is located. And Stephanie made some really good points about people in Spain live outside. They don't live in their houses. Like here in the US, we go into our house and we close the door and we kind of shut out the world. That's not the way people live in Spain. So I just like that lifestyle more, and a smaller place in the city center fits me perfectly.
I could see that. That one property we saw with the rooftop where they all come together and watch movies, on the roof. I loved that. I think that's such a great example of city life and community in Spain where everybody gathers together and, they either block off a street, go to the rooftop, go to a park and gather together outside and not necessarily in their homes.
And that was one of the things I enjoyed most on the trip was, before we started on our tours on the daytime, I would many times go to a little cafe and get a cafe con leche in the morning and just sit and people watch. Or in the evenings, we'd stop off sometimes in an outdoor cafe and have cava, sangria de cava, or a tinto de verano, if I'm getting those terms correct, and just watching the people and the interactions. That was one of the best parts of the trip.
Yeah, definitely. I loved watching you guys discover some of these local favorites, like the tinto de verano. That was such a big hit. That was quite popular.
And I've made them every night since I got home.
I love it. That's great. It's fantastic. So did your idea about what you needed to spend to get what you want change at all, or did that sort of meet expectation for you?
I'm not sure that budget changed, but maybe my thought of rent versus buy changed. Because here in the US, we're kind of taught that you need to buy a property. Owning a home is an important goal for everybody, and I've always done that. But after I learned more about some of the inheritance taxes and laws in Spain, and at my age, it's likely that if I buy a property, my family is going to have to deal with that at some point. And I don't want to burden them with that. So I think I'll end up renting long term. And my budget will roughly be the same, but it was interesting to learn that rental price doesn't necessarily relate to the cost of the property, because many times these properties have been owned by families for generations. So they're not looking to cover their mortgage and their property taxes and those sorts of things. It's pretty much gravy to them what they make off of the property. So very palatial and expensive apartments can actually have a fairly low rental cost. So I think I will end up renting versus buying.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think the other piece of that is the carrying costs of a property are just so much lower. As we talked over and over again, taxes, insurance, community fees, are negligible compared to what it
Absolutely.
costs in the United States. So even if you paid cash for a property in the United States, just to cover your carrying costs, you would have to charge more in rent versus, if you invest in a property in Spain and you put 50% down, you could still make a profit and rent it, assuming you choose wisely. So it's a different calculation, right? And look, not everybody is coming with foreign money. They are renting to locals, and local salaries are lower. And so there is an upper end to what is possible for those rental rates. So that's a really good point. And also gives you a little more flexibility, right? So you may want to rent in one city for a year or two or three, and then you might want to try something else before you're
That's true.
ready to settle.
Although at my age, I really want to put down roots somewhere. I want
Yeah.
to find my tribe. I want to get involved in the community like I've done here in Savannah. So I don't know that I really want to move every year or two or three. I'd like to put down some good, strong roots somewhere.
Yeah. It was interesting to see people's reaction to some things that were standard in homes in Spain that might be different in the US. And I'm curious which ones of those you feel like you could easily adapt to and where you might need to bring your American sensibility to your new home in Spain. Thinking laundry is one example. That was a
Laundry is a
big
good
conversation.
example. So, interestingly enough, when I unpacked all my clothes from this trip and I did the laundry, I was looking through, okay, which things do I really need to put in the dryer and which things can I forego the dryer? And I learned that, I really could live without a dryer. I might have to iron a few more things than normal, but I can live without a dryer. I'm not sure I can live without a dishwasher, though. I hate to wash dishes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What parts of the tour would you say were most helpful to you?
I think it was meeting with people who have made the move already, whether that was an expat group in a couple of the cities where we got to meet with them, or some of the real estate agents have moved from the US or other countries. So hearing their firsthand experiences, what they had to adjust to, how they made it successful. And I think without any exceptions, everybody loves their life in Spain. So that was really validating for me. Looking at the properties was interesting and I enjoyed it, even though I knew that, some of the places I wasn't interested in, but still looking at the properties, learning the lingo when I do start to look for a property was helpful. But I think the most important thing was just meeting other people who've made the move already.
Makes sense. Is there anything that you wish you'd done differently to get more out of the trip?
I wish I'd done more research beforehand. So there were some things that we learned in the opening seminar that really gave me pause and were kind of surprising and shocking, like the taxes. So, and the inheritance and the potential for me to have some difficulties getting healthcare insurance because by the time I make the move, I'll be 70 and that can pose some problems. I have purchased one of the preparation to move packages through moving to Spain, an expatsy partner. And I've already set up a meeting between my financial planners and the Spain tax expert. And then I'll do the healthcare quotes and talk with those people. I wish I'd done that beforehand because especially the tax issue may have an impact on cities that I feel like I can afford to live in. So
Yeah.
having that knowledge beforehand would have been helpful.
Yeah. And I think this is such a good point. And I will link to all of these resources below in the description. So you guys look for those. But most people, especially if they're toward the end of their career, will have enough assets where they will be liable for the wealth tax. And this is something to be aware of. It's different in different parts of Spain, and it could impact your overall picture. Now, the cost of living is still lower, not just moving to save money, but you do need to understand how the taxes in Spain are going to impact your cash flow and your life. So speaking to the tax professionals, understanding the visa process, understanding what your healthcare costs are going to be, those are all really valuable and important things to do. And I agree. I think getting that information and really understanding what your financial picture and your tax liability is before you come to seriously look at property makes a lot of sense. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a really valid point. Now, how far?
One of the things that we think about in the US is there's kind of this magic number that we think we need to reach in order to retire comfortably in the United States. And we don't necessarily think of that as being wealthy. It's just what you need to have a comfortable retirement. But in Spain, their benchmark for wealth is different from ours in the US. So it's something you need to take into consideration and you need to know more about before you go there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that also brings up the point where for most people, especially if you're a couple, you could live in Spain on your US Social Security and not need anything else, assuming we still have Social Security in 10 years. So I don't know how much we bank on that. However, the average salary in Spain is 1,500 a month. People live on 1,500 a month. Maybe not the way you would want to live, but if let's say you have 3,000 a month, or you and your partner have 5,000 together, 5 or 6,000, you can live extremely well. That is considered a very good income. Maybe not if in the center of Madrid or the center of Barcelona, but there are a lot of other places where you can live very, very well on that. And so you pay more in taxes, but what it costs to actually live a really high quality of life is so different. So it's just sort of like the properties. You pay less to get a property in the States, but you pay more to carry it. You pay more to get a property, pay less to carry it. You're going to spend money. It's just going to be in a different way and for different things. So understanding that full picture is it's such a good point. You really need to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to have that info in hand before you land in the country and get shocked in that first seminar.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So other than taxes, what else surprised you most about Spain on this visit?
I don't know that I had a lot of surprises because I visited Spain several times previously. I think the term I would use is more validation. I think this trip validated for me that I can do this. When I first started talking about moving out of the country right after November 7th, a lot of my friends and family said, "What are you thinking? At your age, you're crazy to think about doing that." But I met people my age who have made the move. They're very happy. They've done it very successfully. So validation that I can do this and that I can be happier than I am here now. That was really important for me. So surprise, not really, but validation, which was really a good thing.
Really important for sure. So what's the next step in your relocation journey?
So I've already set up a call with my financial planners and the Spain tax expert. I'm scheduling a call with the healthcare, the insurance people to get some quotes and figure out what that cost is going to be. Like I said, I've purchased the package for moving to Spain. And then a couple of us who are on the trips have been discussing a return to Spain probably in September. We had similar cities that we were interested in exploring, so we thought it might be fun to do that together. So if we can work it out, we're going to come back and explore Girona, Valencia, Alicante, Sevilla. Maybe not all of us, every one of those cities, but we may meet up in a few of them. And then again, I'm going to head north and check out a couple of cities in the Basque area. So hopefully by then I can make a decision. I need to start working on a timeline because I understand now the visa process may be taking longer in some places, at some consulates. So again, hoping to do that consult with moving to Spain with Allison to help work out that timeline and what I need to do, the sequence of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to see you when you are back in Girona, and I'll give you guys the grand tour. You got a rainy day, quick little snapshot of the city, and there's so much more to see. And so that would be really amazing. And really excited to continue to follow you on your journey and cheer you on as you figure out all of the steps to make it happen and then actually land here in Spain. So thank you, Anne. Thanks for sharing your insight and your experience with all of us. And I can't wait to see you in September.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed having this conversation with Anne. It was such a joy to watch her go on this trip. The next Expatsy tour happens in October, and I will be guiding it. So if you're interested in joining me, definitely drop me a note. My link is below. I have a ton of resources for people who want to explore moving to Spain. So make sure to check the description, set up a call with me if you'd like to explore how I can help you make this dream a reality. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to be speaking to another expatsy guest on my next podcast to get her perspective on what she learned during her 3-week scouting trip through Spain. So again, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.